Hi, my name is Joseph Obiajulu. I'm here with the ninth grade seminar for the grade, teaching you for the April session of the grade, which is on a life of service. So let's jump into it. As the world slept in 2015 on Bacon Street in Boston, or as us New Yorkers call it, the worst city in the world for sports, Robert Waldinger, a Harvard psychiatrist, was silently giving the best TED Talk of all time. And you can quote me on that one. Now, this talk did not have a catchy title. It was simply, what makes a life good? And he wasn't going to answer this question just by projecting up his own thoughts. This was not the result of personal or collective sentiments. This was the result of 75 years of one of the longest studies on human outcomes as far as happiness goes ever conducted. They followed more than 700 people over 75 years, checking in with them almost every year, asking them, are you happy? They took a lot of measurements. They tried to check in to see how healthy they were. They also followed their careers, see how much they were progressing, how much money they were making. And they also tried to measure how close they were to their friends and family. I'll let Robert explain more.
When they entered the study, all of these teenagers were interviewed, they were given medical exams. We went to their homes and we interviewed their parents. And then these teenagers grew up into adults who entered all walks of life. They became factory workers and lawyers and bricklayers and doctors. One president of the United States. Some developed alcoholism. A few developed schizophrenia. Some climbed the social ladder from the bottom all the way to the very top. And some made that journey in the opposite direction. The founders of this study would never in their wildest dreams have imagined that I would be standing here today, 75 years later, telling you that the study still continues.
Okay, and so after 75 years of this huge, expansive research project, what was the single factor that Dr. Waldinger and his team realized as being the most important for happiness?
The clearest message that we get from this 75-year study is this. Good relationships keep us happier and healthier, period. It turns out that people who are more socially connected to family, to friends, to community are happier, they're physically healthier, and they live longer than people who are less well connected.
Okay, pretty cool. Relationships. This result is at once extremely profound and extremely commonsensical. Of course, it's going to be relationships that make our lives extremely happy. It'll be having good people around us and having good connections with them. Think about how every year we get some new tragic news about how some actress or some athlete or some politician has decided to take drugs or substances to quiet the pain that they have inside themselves, or even worse, to take their own life. Why? Well, it's not because they didn't know what they had. They knew that they were rich and beautiful and powerful, but they didn't have what really would make their life happy: good relationships. Aristotle, the Greek philosopher, said it right. We are social beings. We're not just individual units. We can't just be happy if we build up our own lives by ourselves, no matter how perfect it might seem. We need to be connected with other people. That's literally how we're built. This is the deepest truth about us. Even more than we are our name, we are our father's and mother's son. No man is an island. So we're born into this social network basically just thinking about ourselves. A child, a baby, doesn't even think about anyone else. It doesn't really even think. It's up to his parents to protect him, to help him to mature, to raise him up. And this is fine. This is beautiful. This is healthy. This is how it's supposed to go at the beginning of our lives. But we have to change. We have to grow up. We have to mature. We're born with all of the arrows pointing towards our node in the social network. And it's up to us to flip them around and start to help other people. Now, when should this happen? It's hard to pin down one particular year in a boy's life. Who can really do that? I think it's good, though, to have a guideline. And more or less throughout all of human history, if you look at the different rites of passages, cultures, civilizations have marked more or less age 12 to 14 as the age in which a boy should stop being a boy and start to be a man. And this is a long process. It doesn't happen overnight, but the process does have to start. We can't delay manhood and prolong boyhood because there's a danger. Especially as a man, we can prolong boyhood. We can do it because we don't have as many natural cues or moments where we realize, hey, things are changing and I have to be a man. No, we can be a 40-year-old boy. It's unfortunate, but it can happen. It can happen if we keep all the arrows of the social network pointed towards our node. And that's not what this is all about. We even start to get a little bit of a hint of this as we start to develop and mature. This happens around ages 12 to 14. We're given new strengths, new abilities. We become taller, stronger. Our voice gets deeper. Why is all this happening? It's not just so that we can look pretty cool and one day be a movie actor. No, it's instead so that we can protect. So we can take those arrows and point towards outward. It's so that other people can depend on us. That is the reason for these new strengths of manhood. So where are we right now? We start with this TED Talk by Dr. Robert Waldinger, who unfortunately lives in the worst city in the world for sports. And he was telling us about happiness. And the results of his study showed that happiness was very, very, very related and correlated and caused, one could even say, by having good, deep, healthy relationships. We looked at the role of relationships in our lives, that we're born into a relationship, that no man is an island. And at the beginning of our lives, the relationship that we're born into puts us at the center. Everyone is focused on us. Everyone is trying to help us. And as we start to grow up, it's time for us to start to help other people. And this, my friends, is what makes a life good. It's having our node point towards others, being dependable instead of being a dependent. And this perpetual dependency is what makes for a bad life, an unhappy life. Now, this is kind of counterintuitive, right? Because in the beginning of our lives, we're thinking about ourselves. And doesn't it seem like thinking about ourselves is the best way to make sure we ourselves are happy? I'll admit it's a little bit of a paradox, but the more you think and are concerned about your own happiness instead of the happiness of others, you're going to be that much less happy. Why is that? Well, it's because the more you're concerned about your own happiness instead of the happiness of others, the less you're going to help other people, and the less other people are going to want to be with you. Your relationships will suffer, and because of that, as Dr. Waldinger's study shows, you will have a less happy life.
And the experience of loneliness turns out to be toxic. People who are more isolated than they want to be from others find that they are less happy, their health declines earlier in midlife, their brain functioning declines sooner, and they live shorter lives than people who are not lonely.
Here's the cool thing, guys, though. This doesn't need to happen. It doesn't need to happen. You're 15. You can make sure that you start to make the changes you have to make in order to make sure your node points outwards. And even if you're an older person watching this, it's not too late to start thinking about other people. It's not too late to flip those arrows around and be concerned about the others around you in your social network.
So what about you? Let's say you're 25, or you're 40, or you're 60. What might leaning into relationships even look like? Well, the possibilities are practically endless. It might be something as simple as replacing screen time with people time, or livening up a stale relationship by doing something new together, long walks or date nights, or reaching out to that family member who you haven't spoken to in years, because those all too common family feuds take a terrible toll on the people who hold the grudges.
Okay, cool. So maybe you're convinced right now. Maybe you're convinced that what you need to do is focus on the relationships in your life to deepen them, to keep them healthy in order to have a good life, which is great. Great news. Now, here's the next question. How do you do it? How do you do it? A little side note. I think right now in our society, we really do not like asking this question, how do I do it? When's the last time you read a manual front to cover? Maybe never. Do they even make manuals even more? But we do have to ask ourselves, how do we do certain things? Especially the most important things in our life. How can we deepen the relationships that we have? And I think there's a pretty simple answer to this. It's by serving. Yeah, it's by serving. Service is the how. If having good relationships is the what for what makes a good and happy life, serving is the how. It's going to be through service. That is how we're going to deepen our relationships and keep them healthy. It's not going to be just by nice words. It's not going to be by occasional random acts of kindness. Those are all great, and we need them, but they're not sufficient. Principally, what we need is service. Service, this ability to be reliable and dependable. Service, this ability to truly help people in ways that they truly need it, whether they say it or not. Because whether they say it this bluntly or not, the adults in your life are starting to expect you to be a dependable man. And when you do not take the trash out, when you do not put the video game down to make it to dinner on time, and when you do not, in general ways, respect them and the family, you are letting them down. Because that look in their eye of disappointment truly says this: my son, I expected you to be a man by now, upon whom I could depend. And you're not that. And so my life is more burdensome. Help your parents. Help your siblings. Help the elders in your community. The world literally depends upon you being a man. We've been talking about service. What is service? What's the first thing that comes into your mind when I say service? I'll take some guesses. It's probably you at a soup kitchen. It's probably you crossing the road with an elderly blind woman who's crossing the... Okay, anyway, so this is not what I mean by service. Of course it includes that, but service starts at home. Excuse that cliche, but it makes sense in this case. Because the relationships of the people who are closest to us are the ones that are going to be most important for us to deepen and keep healthy. Our parents, our siblings, our best friends, our future family, wives, things like this. So these are the people that it is most important to serve. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't go out to serve at a soup kitchen or a hospital. In fact, I think every man should have some program of community service regularly scheduled into their calendar, because at the end of the day, we are citizens in a larger world. We have to help out the world. We do, however, have to start by helping out the world of our family. We have to worry about that world, because that's the world in which we most often live. These are the people we are most often around. Because if we don't serve our friends and our family, the people closest to us, then there's something going wrong. I want to read a quote. I want to read a quote from this book, The Brothers Karamazov. Great book. If you haven't read it, read it. It's like 800 pages, but still read it. It's great. And I want to read a quote by this one character who was a little bit of a curmudgeon. You know, he's just kind of not a great guy, not a great dude. And but he talks about how he loves humanity. Let me just read the quote. We'll talk about it. The more I love humanity in general, the less I love man in particular. In my dreams, I often make plans for the service of humanity, and perhaps I might actually face crucifixion if it weren't suddenly necessary. Yet I am incapable of living in the same room with anyone for 2 days together. I know from experience. As soon as anyone is near me, his personality disturbs me and restricts my freedom. In 24 hours, I begin to hate the best of men. One because he's too long over his dinner, another because he has a cold and keeps on blowing his nose. I become hostile to people the moment they come close to me. But it has always happened that the more I hate men individually, the more I love humanity. This quote is by the character Ivan in Dostoevsky's The Brother Karamazov. Ivan is a perfect example of someone who will end up alone and unhappy. Why? Well, because he doesn't truly serve the people around him. He loves humanity, but he doesn't realize that humanity is made up of men. If you don't love men, you can't truly love humanity. And so, if you don't serve men, you can't truly serve humanity. You might be doing something else. You might be making yourself feel good, but you're not really serving. You're not really doing what you were built to do. And it's that which makes for unfulfilled and sad life. It's this fact that we can actually do what we're not meant to do. We can fail in our mission. We can fail in this mission to serve and protect those around us. And that failure is the opposite of happiness. Happiness is a successful mission of our life of service. Let's jump back to the social network example, because I want to expand it a little bit further. Because in a certain sense, I said that what we have to do is invert the arrows of our node. And that was partly true, but there's something even deeper here. We have to take a larger view of the picture. We have to stop identifying with just one node and start to identify with the net. That's to say, we have to stop thinking about our own problems and our own worries as something different and more important than the worries of other people. Other people's worries have to be our worries. Other people's joys have to be our joys. There's a great quote about this topic. It says that friendship is one of the best things for a happy life, because through friendship, you double your joys and you half your burdens. This is the adventure of life. This is the adventure of a life lived as a net and not as a single node. Life as a single node, I'll admit, it sucks. It's awful. It is awful. Things go bad and it's all on you. Things go good. Who can you celebrate with? Life as a net is where we want to be. That's where you want to be. I know it. Even though I can't see you and I'm just staring at the camera. I know it. This switch from node to net, that's what we want to do. That's how we want to live. And we get to that point through service. Serving others. Serving others requires us to actually take the concerns of other people to heart. How to serve? Well, I just want to give 3 tips on service. First, it will be hard. That's just the world. Welcome to planet Earth. It is hard for us to serve other people because naturally we think about ourselves, and so we will have to put up this fight to think about others, to really serve others. Second tip, it is worth it. It's well worth it. It's worthwhile to serve other people because once again, as this study has showed us, it's through serving that will deepen our relationships, and through deeper relationships we'll be happier. And so it's worthwhile to keep up this struggle. Third, you can serve every day. You can serve every second. And in a certain sense, this is really the arena in which we have to learn how to serve. We can't just wait for these one-off weekends and these times where we'll be able to do some extraordinary service. We have to serve every day. That's really what has to happen. And in order for that to happen, we have to turn our work into service. Okay, let's take a pause here. You might be thinking this is all great service, ruha, but look, let's be honest, I'm in school all day. I work all day. In fact, maybe I'm away from my family and friends all day as I'm working and things like this. How do I have any chance or opportunity to serve? And this is a very important point because you're right. You'll spend most of your life likely seated somewhere working. That's going to be the bulk of your life, especially the bulk of your conscious life. So in order to have a life of service, to be a man who serves, you have to learn how to turn your work into opportunity to serve. And let me tell you, this is nothing other than the deepest meaning of work. This is why we work. Most jobs really are acts of service for other people. I would say all noble jobs are. All noble jobs help someone. And so all noble professionals are servants in the positive sense. They have this great opportunity to serve their coworkers, to serve their family by making money and by being able to bring home resources to provide. They serve the world by doing their service because most jobs are an act of service. What happens is that most people forget that. They stop seeing their job as an act of service. They start seeing their job as just a means to an end. I want to work here so I can become happy. But once again, this is the focus on the individual node. This is what actually crushes happiness. We should go to work realizing that we're here to serve our family, our friends, our coworkers, the world. And we'll get a lot of fulfillment out of that because we'll see that we're deepening our relationships, which makes for a good life. I want to give you a couple of examples because I think it's important to actually see how one's profession truly can be and should be and even was meant to be an act of service towards other people and people close to us as well as society at large. Okay, let's take an easy example at first. An example of a doctor or a nurse. Especially in this time, it's very easy to see how being a doctor or a nurse or another medical professional is an act of service. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of doctors at NYU Langone, which is about 3 blocks that way on the other side of this beautiful bookcase, who are wearing gloves and N95 masks and are trying to help people fight COVID-19. And even cooler, there are thousands of doctors in New York who have come out of retirement. They actually took a bus from the Florida golf courses up to New York City. That's a joke, I think. These doctors have come out of retirement, and which means they're older and more at risk, so they can help people fight COVID-19. These doctors and nurses are public servants per excellence. In fact, here in New York City, at 7 p.m. every night, all the New Yorkers who are still here go to their windows and clap and applaud the doctors. Now, at first, I thought they were all clapping, applauding for me, which made me first very proud and also at the same time deeply concerned because I wasn't sure why they were doing this. Later on, I figured out why. Let's do another example in this time of COVID-19. There right now are hundreds and thousands of stores which are closed, but grocery stores are not one of them. People still need to eat. It's true. I'm hungry. There are thousands of employees who run the grocery store still. They run the checkout aisles, they stock the food, they take in the shipments in carts and all of these things. And once again, they're endangering their own lives and they're serving other people. What I like about this example is probably just 7 weeks ago, you never thought of the grocery store workers as public servants. And it's not that something really has fundamentally changed in what they're doing. It's just that we now recognize more of how they're serving us. Because you could say the risks are higher for them to do their act of service. It's more valiant. But they're doing the thing that they've always done. And what they have always done has been the public service. This goes for all the professionals who are still working and who are acting as public servants during this time of COVID-19. Really, our thoughts and prayers go out to them. I encourage you to look at Google. Every day they have a new Google Doodle in which they are saying thanks to some new field of work, people who are serving us through this all. And it's cool because it started with doctors and nurses, which was obvious. But over the last couple of days, it's moved on to other examples. People who do public sanitation, people who do public transportation, all these people who are really serving right now. But once again, the point is that they have always served. They've always served. And they have been living a life of service. And that's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing, especially if they recognize it. So whether you be a doctor, whether you be a teacher, whether you be a professor, a researcher, a delivery man, all these things, right now you're serving in a very deep way. But this job was always a job of service, as once again, all noble jobs can be and should be. A couple of examples, maybe jobs that are being locked in right now, I want to show are still jobs of service if the employee, if the worker sees it and chooses that to be that way. Let's take a financier. What does a financier do? Well, it depends. There are many different sectors in the financial market. You could be trading T-bills, you could be trading stocks, you could be trading subprime mortgage-backed credit default swaps, you could be trading derivatives. Hopefully you're not trading that second last one anymore. Anyway, there's a lot you could be trading as a financier. And this is kind of a tough one to see this as a life of service. But let's try here. What's going on? What's going on with all of this trade? What you're doing is making the market more liquid. So it's easier to get assets. It's easier for people to get loans to open up the small business and things like that. Also, you're looking for more opportunities to make the economy just more efficient. And so if you're doing this with an eye towards helping other people, you're serving. You're serving society by keeping the economic market well functioning. In fact, I had a very interesting conversation with this fellow who works at Wells Fargo in their wealth management sector just a couple weeks ago. It was actually amid the whole COVID-19 crisis. And it was super cool because he was seeing how right now, and really always, his job was opportunity to serve. His job was opportunity to help families who do have a lot of means learn how to use that money well. Because there are a lot of families who want to use their resources to help the world. And so he saw that his job as a wealth management consultant was a means towards serving the world more broadly. And that's a beautiful thing. I want to take another example, which is the example of being a used car salesman. Now, used car salesmen don't have the best rep in general, and most people kind of see them as the opposite of a public servant. But I want to take this extreme example to show that really it can be an act of service. So if you're a used car salesman and you see your job as an opportunity to squeeze a little man and get some more money and kind of move cars that are broken out of the lot, then of course it's not going to be a life of service. But if you see your job as an opportunity to help families who maybe are financially struggling purchase a car which is used but has been refurbished and is usable, then you're doing a beautiful act of service. You're serving society. In fact, maybe you're really serving people who really need it. Okay, another example here, which is a programmer. So I think this is an interesting job because most people don't really see being a programmer as like this noble act of service. Neither do they see it as something that's bad or slimy. It's kind of just in the middle. But what's cool about programming is that you can see your job as an act of service. I, in fact, used to be a programmer for 2 years. It was cool to see all the opportunities there really were for service. Every time I decided to put in the effort and make sure that there were no bugs in my code and things ran smoothly, my teammate who needed to integrate with whatever code I was writing, their job was made easier. And I was able to serve them that way. You could tell they were thankful. And every time I found out about some cool new tool and told my boss and maybe told other teams about it, They were thankful because it was opportunity for us to do things better and to make our lives a little bit easier so we could focus more on getting good work done. And every time just being in the office, helping someone who had a bug or kind of going all hands on deck when something was going awry, that was acts of service because it was a way to share the burden of the problem with the whole team. And these are beautiful moments, just being able to serve. Once again, like I said, that's a personal example because I was a programmer and it was cool. And I did really see myself as a servant as I was programming. And across the spectrum of jobs, noble jobs can be, should be, were meant to be an act of service. And I want you to get excited about this. I want you to get excited about serving because once again, serving is the actualization of what we were meant to do. We were meant to serve. We were meant to be part of this social network, of this web, of relationships. You were meant to be a part of it to help other people. That's why we have strength. That's why we have intelligence. Ultimately, so we can serve. Okay, one more thing before we go. You might be thinking, I'm a student right now. I'm 15 years old. This is all great, but I'm 10 years away before I'm one of these professions. And that's true, but right now you are a student. And as a student, you have many, many, many opportunities to serve. You could, for example, help your classmates stay on track, maybe especially during this COVID-19 time where it's very easy to play video games and go on Snapchat and all these things and objectively waste time. So you could serve the people around you by helping them stay on track. You can serve your teachers by doing your job well, by respecting them, by studying hard, by asking good questions, by trying to follow their lead. You can serve your parents by working hard and by doing well in school and maybe, just maybe, getting scholarship for college and all these things. These are true acts of service. And if you study well and work hard and cultivate all of your skills right now, you will be serving the world. Because here's the thing, my friend. The world is going to need people just like you. The world is going to need people who see their profession not just as an opportunity to get more wealth, more power, more fame, but an opportunity to serve. I hope everyone's doing well in the COVID-19 lock-in. We are thinking about you over here from the grade and looking forward to the opportunity to get back in person wherever that will be. Now, you might be thinking you're locked in. It's easier. There are less people checking in on your work and all these things. It's easier to take it easy. Don't take it easy. When people are not looking, instead of doing less, do more. Be better. I know you can do it. You're meant to do it. So go get after it. This is Joe O from the 9th grade seminar, Big Achievement Seminar from the grade, signing off. Be better, my friends.